Bienvenue, benvenuti, and welcome to Expatriotical, the podcast for expats, travelers, and other adventurous souls. I'm Chandra Alley, and after living as an expat with my husband and 4 children in 2 different countries for 6 years, I've learned the arts of pivoting during pitfalls, traveling tastefully for less, and soaking in amazing new cultures without losing your own. Join me as we dive into the joys and challenges of travel and the expat life in every episode. Hey everybody, super excited to have you back here again this week, and we're going to do something new again this week. I'm writing this before I have any reviews of last week's episode, so hang in there if you are still trying to adjust to new things. I promise that next week we will go back to a regular interview episode. But this week I wanted to share something with you, something that I wrote a few years ago and something that is part of the reason why I started Expatriotical. For those that are not familiar with the literary world, and it's not like I'm an expert, but it's quite an ordeal to break into publishing and being an author, especially when you write nonfiction. Most publishing companies and subsequently many literary agents want you to come with your own platform or built-in base for book sales. I've heard numbers range from 3,000 up to having 25,000 followers. And in part, that's why I started this podcast. I had found my love for helping expats, and so I thought, let's build on that. So that's what I'm doing, sharing my experiences with you in hopes they will help you and you will share with others and they will share with even more people and I will be able to build a platform. Because I started writing a memoir about my time in Italy, though I haven't finished after taking a webinar from one of the agencies that I follow that said you should not complete a nonfiction manuscript. Anyway, it's personal, it's true, and most importantly, it is an untouched draft that, if picked up by an agency, would definitely be chopped up and put in a different order, I'm sure. But regardless, I thought I would share some of it with you as it's kind of like sharing a little piece of myself. And since I've already shared a lot with you, why not share a chapter of one of my book babies? Also, I've been listening to author and podcaster Chandra Alley read her new book, The Plan, and it has been so fun to hear a voice I listen to every week in a different context or slightly different format, if you will. So I thought it would be fun to do a pretend version of that. The Plan is excellent, by the way, if you are looking for an absolutely fresh and compassionate take on time management. I highly recommend it. The working title of my book is called Divorcing Italy, though that has definitely raised some eyebrows when I've shared the name with other people. Anyway, here it is in all of its unedited glory. Chapter 1, How We Met. Being met by a stone gray sky filled with dense clouds that threatened the possibility of rain felt ominous and was not what I was expecting to see as we drove out of the Avis-covered car park from Malpensa Airport. I had just finished Tetrising 3 car seats, complete with accompanying kids, 10 suitcases, and a Bob Dooley stroller into every possible nook and cranny of a black Ford Galaxy. Feeling accomplished, I was ready to face the next phase of our journey, the drive to our hotel. That is, as long as Chris, my husband, was driving. But seeing those clouds and that sky made me second guess my excitement. Wasn't this supposed to be the sunny Italy I'd seen on TV? I mean, it was still August. The heat and the humidity were a good reminder of that. Thankfully, I had come from the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas, where humidity and high temperatures were constant companions from about the end of May until mid to late October. Seriously, though, where was the sun? Where were the sun-kissed lanes lined with brightly colored houses full of character and topped with terracotta tiles? All I could see was gray. A gray concrete highway, gray barrier walls along said highway, and of course the eternal gray clouded ceiling above. In fairness, there were trees, which were green, but nothing about them was vibrant or hinted that there was excitement beyond them. Just regular old trees. So as we drove along the highway toward the center of Milan and the hotel that would, unbeknownst to us, be our home for the next 2.5 months, I have to say that I wasn't really impressed. Bewildered by all the signs in a language which I had had zero exposure to, sans 2 DVDs called Italian for Kids, which we had bought for our bambini, children in Italian, prior to moving. Exhausted after flying the 12 hours from Dallas to Frankfurt, waiting out a layover by eating a 45 € breakfast of yogurt and danishes, ouch, and brushing teeth in a tiny corner bathroom, and then taking a shorter flight from there to Milan, all the while juggling an 18-month-old who on the first flight had refused to sit still or sleep, a 3-year-old who had been upset that we wanted him to turn off his personal television set so he could sleep, and a 5-year-old who, well, she was actually pretty good. Suffice it to say, I had a lot of emotions and thoughts, but being impressed wasn't one of them. You see, like most Americans, I first met Italy when I was back across the ocean, sitting in my own home and watching her beauty from the comfort of my couch. Now that was what Italy was supposed to look like. My first encounter with Il Bel Paese, as Italy is called by its own, was most likely watching the movie A Walk in the Clouds, starring a young and very handsome Keanu Reeves. Seeing the TNT version of this film, which showcased the gorgeous rolling hills of Tuscany, the love of wine, food, music, and robust Italian family life all became quickly embedded in my young mind. Then, several years later, Under the Tuscan Sun came out, and I was completely swept off my feet, watching the lovely Diane Lane being romanced by a very sexy Raoul Bova in richly cultured and quaint piazzas and cafes along the coast of the Ligurian seaside. And once again, amongst the vineyards of those gorgeous Tuscan hills, I was convinced that life in Italy must be eternally sunny, eternally wonderful, and eternally beautiful. My fantastical relationship continued during this period as I perused the internet and watched the ever trustworthy news source of Entertainment Tonight as people such as George Clooney enjoyed life in their villas along the shores of the jaw-droppingly gorgeous Lake Como. I mean, come on, I thought. Does this country get any more beautiful? As I built this case over time in my young mind, it was not because I was planning to move to Italy or even to visit for that matter. I just enjoyed the wonder of it all. I had no friends that had been to Italy to keep my fantasies in check, nor would there have been any check needed since I wasn't really going there. I just liked to daydream whenever I would see snippets on the cover of People magazine or a story pop up on the MSN homepage as I went to search for something else. Italy lived in its own fantasy land, tucked away in the recesses of my mind. So when the possibility came across Chris's path to possibly apply for a position in Milan, my heart was set aflurry with absolutely zero logic or truth to hold it back. Could we lunch on Lake Como? Yes, Como again, because the fact that Italy has several other large and small lakes nestled at the base of its Alps was not yet known to me. Could we picnic in vineyards and brush the dust off of our shoes as we passed through the gates of the Roman Forum? Yes and yes. The delightful fantasies played on in my mind. I wasn't totally oblivious to reality, though. I was very aware that I was 3 months pregnant with my 4th child, and that moving over the summer would mean giving birth to our baby, gender to be determined at that point, in a foreign country. Yikes. So we prayed about whether or not this would be something that God would have us do. Doing things within His will or plans is always something we want to do, but especially when we are making big decisions or changes. It is notable to mention here that we were also praying about an opportunity to move to Belgium as well. After some time of praying, we both decided that we had peace with Chris moving forward and applying for the position, asking God to close any doors He didn't want us to walk through along the way. By this time, it was getting close to June, and we were about to go on a family vacation, something that, up to that point, we had done every other year. We packed up our 2012 Honda Odyssey, oh how I miss her, and headed east toward the warm waters of Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. We stopped in Jackson, Mississippi, decidedly the cleanest capital city we had ever seen, and Atlanta, Georgia, along the way, taking in downtown and the vibrant and youthful Ponce City Market, which was repurposed from an old Sears and Roebuck factory. When we reached Hilton Head, we were met by a deluge of rain, but it quickly subsided and we commenced with our beach time fun. It was another great beach vacation for the books. It is important to note for further reference in this story that beach vacations are my favorite vacations. I mean, how can warm water, soft sand, and sunlight not make a person happy? And I couldn't even drink on that vacation. The thing that distinguished this vacay from all the others is that in the midst of it, Chris had an interview for both the Milan and Belgium jobs. After he finished it, I asked how he felt it went, and he said he felt it went well, but it would be a while before we knew anything. So we continued our vacation, soaking in the sweetness of Savannah, Georgia, absorbing the sounds and sights of Nashville and Graceland, and finally following in the footsteps of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and also my great uncle, I later discovered, as we dipped our toes in the waters of Hot Springs, Arkansas. Back in Texas, we busied ourselves with swimming lessons, vacation Bible school, and planting a flower garden in our front yard as we waited to hear the news of whether or not Chris would be offered one of the jobs. When the day finally came, and this is a proud moment for me as a wife, they didn't just offer him a job, they gave him the option to choose which position he would prefer. We had still been praying about it, and since we had read that the weather in Belgium tended to be rainy, be it summer or winter, and we were still recovering from our previous Seattle location, constant gray for 10 months of the year compared to our perpetually sunny homeland of Colorado. We felt that moving to Milan would probably be a better choice for us. If only I would have known about the fog of Basilio. More on that later. Quindi, then, in Italian, Milan it was. I like to think of how I met Italy as being similar to how I first met Chris. I saw him from afar as I stood on the sidelines in my red, white, and blue cheerleading uniform, chanting for my team to pummel his team into oblivion. Just joking. Okay, only kind of joking. He was a talented and well-known athlete in our small rural county who played for my school's rival team. I was the new girl who stood out in my mind because of my poofy brown ponytail atop a chicken-legged body clothed in caramel-colored skin. That was all that it was at first, like Italy, just noticing from afar. Until that fateful September night our senior year, when after cruising Maine for a while, yes, that was a thing where we lived, I pulled over at the park and we officially introduced ourselves. Just so there is no confusion, Chris and I weren't really high school sweethearts. We dated for 2 months and I broke up with him on New Year's Eve. Happy New Year's, babe. I don't think it's going to work out. I know. I was a bit cold-hearted. Regardless, we pretty much saw hide nor hair of one another for about 8 years, when one day he reached out online, hence more of the similarity to my connection with Italy. We began talking and eventually started a long-distance relationship, which again, I liken this to the beginning of my relationship with Italy, getting to know one another from afar. And end scene. Okay, that really wasn't acting, but it was kind of fun to say that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little snippet of my second book baby. And speaking of books, I'm super excited to share with you not necessarily a book for this week's Shan Select, but the location of where we had our last book club meeting here in Paris. A few Fridays ago, I met up with some lovely ladies for dinner and discussion of the book The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. That book was actually the Shan Select in episode 33, Becoming a Stay-at-Home Expat with Teresa Kodiak. So if you want to hear my thoughts on it and listen to a great interview, check out that episode. The great part was Teresa, everybody, not me, by the way. Anyway, we met up at a lovely restaurant in the 7th arrondissement of Paris called Le Bosquet, which means the grove in English. The food was delicious, the ambiance was lovely, but the service was not only excellent, it was amiable, entertaining, and genuine. We were able to meet the owners who were vigilant, working alongside their staff to ensure the excellence of the food and the comfort of the clientele. They joked with us, they were so polite, and they really made us feel at home. If you are looking for a place to simply dine or pass the night with friends while enjoying wine, delicious desserts, and so much more, Le Bosquet is an excellent spot. And only minutes from the Champ de Mars, where the Eiffel Tower is, it's an excellent location as well. I will be sure to put Le Bosquet's website in the show notes. And as always, I'm not an affiliate, just a fan. Finally, for our quote of the day, with a sort of theme about books surrounding this episode, coupled with the fact that when this episode airs, Halloween is only one day away, our quote of the day comes from the king of creepy, the sultan of suspense, author Stephen King. King says, "Books are a uniquely portable magic." And I totally agree. That's it for today, everybody. If you have enjoyed this episode and know someone else that would enjoy it too, would you please take a moment to share it? Those little thoughtful acts helped to grow this wonderful community that I am truly so thankful for. Have a spectacular day, everyone, and I'll see you back here again next week. Until then, this is Chandra Alley reminding you to live and travel in the know with Expatriotical.